Okay, so next up we have Sunstone Metals, ASX code STM, an exploration company with 2 world-class gold and copper assets in Ecuador. Presenting for the company today is Managing Director, Patrick Duffy. Patrick, thank you for your time. Over to you.
Thanks, Abby, and good afternoon, everyone. Happy to be presenting for Sunstone Metals today. We've had some big news this week, and it's timely to be presenting. For those that don't know me, I previously was with a company called Red 5, a WA gold producer, who I joined in 2019, $60 million market cap, and when I finished earlier this year, we were $2.5 billion market cap in 5 years later. I've joined Sunstone Metals in April for the simple fact that we have 2 incredible projects that have just as much, if not significantly more potential as what we had with Red 5 and King of the Hills. And it's a very, very exciting story. Go ahead, 2 slides. So we have 2 projects in Ecuador and South America. This is in the Andean Copper Belt, the same systems that we see with Chile and Ecuador, and Peru and Colombia, that host the majority of the world's porphyry systems. And we have 2 of these. This week we've announced at El Palmar the scope that for it to be a Tier 1 global deposit, and there's very few that sit outside the majors in the world. It has an initial resource of 1.2 million ounces, which is modest, but complemented with huge exploration target of 15 to 45 million ounces gold equivalent. We simply don't have anything of that scale on the ASX, and this is quite an incredible story. There's a huge advantage at El Palmar where it sits at surface and goes quite deep, but we're able to start it in the future as an open pit, large mine, and it gives us then the cash flow to be able to develop the deeper underground potential at El Palmar. We have a second project, Bramaderos, which in its own right is a huge scale, potentially the same scale as, say, De Grey, which is a $3 billion, 10 million ounce market cap in Western Australia. It currently has a 2.7 million ounce resource and targets both at the porphyries and the other complementary systems that take us to an expectation of over 10 million ounces. And we've been advancing it over the last 2 years in drilling, which we'll cover off today. We're well funded. We've just raised $6.5 million, and we have some major catalysts, including this week's El Palmar resource. But significantly, we are in discussions with various parties about joint venture opportunities to be able to help us unlock the future value both at El Palmar and Bramaderos, and going through that process. Go to the next slide. So El Palmar is very accessible from the capital Quito. We can drive there. It's about 1,500 meters above sea level. As you can see in the photo, we're able to access it. It's mostly farmland. There's no protected areas or native forests. There's no indigenous communities. The local community is very supportive of us, and they're familiar with mining, with operations in the area. And we're fully permitted for drilling and for access to water and to power. On the next slide. We sit in this, what's called the Tawachi fault system that hosts 2 tier 1 systems that are certainly well known around the world. Urimagua is next door. That's owned by Codelco, which is a huge billion ton system. And further north is the Cascabel project owned by SolGold, which is a 3 billion ton system. And our expectations is El Palmar, with further drilling, will join these tier 1 world-class deposits. It's in an area that's highly sought after. Hancock from Western Australia, Gina Runhart, people would be familiar with, have committed to investing $120 million in drilling programs in the area that's around El Palmar and around Urimagua, which just highlights the how in demand this area is. Go to the next slide. This great diagram which shows the full system that we've identified to date. So 2 downward plunging porphyry systems with a resource at surface, which is the open pit outline at the top. The resource we've established to date on only 17,000 meters of drilling is 1.2 million ounces. gold and copper. And in that pit shell, it's certainly open and expected to go much deeper. For the exploration target that's shown in the diagram here, it's 1 billion to 1.2 billion tonne target with grades 0.3 to 0.7 grams gold and 0.1 to 0.3% copper. If you took the averages of those, conceivably sort of 30 million ounces of gold at 0.8 to 0.9%, 0.8 to 0.9 grams per tonne gold equivalent. And this is only for 3 of 5 targets that we have, and there's huge potential for this to grow. On the next slide. This is the resource. You can see the pit shell on the left, and on the right, it's a plan view. There's lots of areas here that are still to be drilled out and add to the mining inventory. And we expect it to go much deeper. It'll be a very, very large open pit, very low stripping ratio, so sort of 1 to 2 times ore versus waste being mined. And since lots of expectations that it will grow. It's got significant copper and silver byproduct credits. The work that we've done on desktop level would be very, very low cost mining operation here at El Palmar. Next slide is the exploration target. The thing I'd like to highlight is on the right-hand side, this diagram which shows the coloured areas that target in part of the exploration target. But there's still significant areas to the left in that diagram where you see which we haven't drilled yet, which could take what already is a monster deposit and at least double or triple the size. We think as we go deeper, there'll be more copper content. Currently, it's about 25% gold copper, but we think, particularly given most of the big porphyry systems in the area tend to be copper gold, that there'll be more copper as we go deeper. Next slide is our second project, Bramaderos in the south. I'll touch on. It's in a very good location, quite remote, southern Ecuador, only 1,000 meters above sea level, and the deposits are in this valley, so very easy to access. You can see the hills in the foreground. They are the porphyry systems that have come up to surface and been eroded away, leaving these gold, copper, silver systems that one day will be very easily mined. It's got great access to infrastructure with the Pan American Highway running through the concession, close to the port. We're connected to the grid. We've got water and full drilling access, and it's a community that relies on subsistence agriculture and is very supportive, wanting to see mining drive future prosperity in this area. The next slide is just the concession map on the left, which shows the black circles are the porphyries, and the Brahma Elba, the 2 circles you can see with the colours inside them, have had drilling and make up the resource of 2.7 million ounces. On top of that, we have a further 3.3 to 8.6 million ounce target covering Brahma Elba and Melanal and some of the other smaller porphyries. But again, we think this will grow with further exploration. We also have complementary epithermal systems that tend to be higher grade, and we have been drilling in the top right in a system called Limon, which has the opportunity to provide higher grade feed as part of a very, very large porphyry development here at Bramaderos. On the next slide, you can see drilling that's focused on this Limon epithermal system, shaping up as a very nice open pit opportunity. Some of the drilling has been exceptional. You might be able to see hole 26 on the right down the bottom, 185 meters, almost 3 grams per tonne is a phenomenal hit. Nice wide open systems and lots of exploration upside here. And we think potentially there's a target of 1 to 1.7 million ounces to complement the porphyry. If we stay as a standalone company, we can see Limon being developed first as a sort of 100 to 150,000 per annum gold silver mine, giving us then the funding to develop the bigger porphyry systems. But alternatively, if we were to partner with a major, it could be developed simultaneously with the high grade feed coming from Limon being fed into the bigger porphyry processing facility. On the next slide, just to highlight, obviously, I'm sure most investors would be aware, current gold price at record levels, both US dollar, Aussie dollar, and all on the back of, unfortunately, consistent sort of global volatility and uncertainty, and the recent pivot in US interest rates has started to see gold really take off, quite realistically getting to $3,000 by Christmas time. And copper is the second major commodity that we have in addition to silver. But a great time to have two projects with significant copper content when there's the general consensus, I think, right now that the fundamentals around copper are extremely strong for the many decades ahead, where copper supply will really have difficulty to keep up with copper demand for the product. The last slide is just the overview. I mentioned we've raised $6.5 million. Our market cap is roughly 35 to 40 million. On an EV to mineral resource, we're around $7 to $8 per ounce, which is absurdly cheap. It should be at least, in my mind, $40 to $60 per ounce when you compare it to our some similar projects, but without the upside that we have with Tier 1 deposit El Palma and a similar very large scale potential at Bramaderos. We've delivered the target this week. We're up 25% since then, and I think we'll only continue to grow. And I think if we can secure at least one partnership for one of the assets, then again, that will only validate and drive the share price for a significant re-rate. There was a research report released today by GBA Capital, had a target price of 2.6 cents. We're currently 0.77 cents, and a midterm valuation of 9 cents. So classic 10-bagger opportunity, backed up by two incredible projects. That's all for me, Abby. Back to you.
Thank you, Patrick. So I do have a few questions here as well, if you do have the time to answer those. So could you talk more about the support from local communities for the El Palma project?
Yeah, so we've had no difficulties at all with El Palma. It's been very straightforward. One thing the company has done prior to me starting, which I have been really pleased to see, is there was a lot of consultation done at the beginning when the project was picked up in 2021, consultations with the communities about what their imminent sort of needs were, and designed in collaboration health and education programs that are relatively low cost, but that have a real impact in their lives. And I mentioned earlier, there are smaller scale mining operations that have been operating for decades in this area, and the communities are quite familiar with mining. So yeah, very, very fortunate to come in and have strong support from both El Palma and Bramaderos communities.
And then is there any information you can share about conversations with partners for your projects, and what opportunities for collaboration are you looking at?
Yeah, obviously for confidential reasons, I can't say too much, but our ideal outcome would be a joint venture arrangement with a farm-in, with a sort of major mining house, or potentially North Asia investors that are seeking these sort of Tier 1 deposits, and they would earn into the JV through the expenditure that would fund the exploration that Sunstone would continue to undertake. But yeah, we're still working through those discussions, and confident we'll get some great outcomes.
Thanks, Patrick. So are the resources for El Palma and Bramaderos JORC 2012?
Yeah. Are they? Is that the question?
Pardon?
Are they JORC 2012?
Yes.
Yeah. So Bramaderos has a 2.7 million ounce resource that was prepared independently by CSA Global, so global mining house, consultancy house. And the most recent resource for El Palma was prepared independently by Rob Spears, which is a very well regarded independent resource analyst.
And then what are the projected timelines for the El Palma and Bramaderos projects? How long would it be until final investment decisions?
Yeah, I think with sustained exploration programs, still a lot of drilling to establish what will be major sort of global multi-decade mining operations. I would expect at least sort of 3 to 5 years of drilling at both before we get to an economic resource that you can build a 400,000 ounce per annum gold copper mine at both projects.
And what's your funding strategy going forward? How well funded are you now, and how will you finance future exploration?
Yeah, so we've just raised $6.5 million. We've paused exploration activity whilst we are having these conversations with potential partners. In an ideal world, we are now funded on the back of a joint venture that will fund the exploration programs and pay us a management fee for running those exploration programs. So that remains to be seen, but that's one of the objectives of having these joint venture discussions.
And there's 2 questions here about country and regulatory risk in Ecuador. Could you offer any thoughts on that area?
Yeah, so in terms of regulatory regime, it's quite similar to Chile. I see a lot of similarities, and having worked overseas for 10 years, no major surprises. Tax regime is very similar to Chile. From a just general country risk, there's 2 world-class mines in Ecuador. One's Fruta del Norte, owned by Lundin Gold, which is now a $10 billion company on the back of their success. This tier 1 asset, amazing gold deposit. And not far away from Fruta del Norte is the Mirador copper mine, owned by a Chinese company, but it's a 30 million ton per annum processing facility, but a world-class copper mine. There's a number of projects that are shovel ready. There is an election at the beginning of next year, which we believe the current president, who's very much pro-mining, pro-business, will be re-elected, and that's a really important milestone where we think the next 4 or 5 years, Ecuador will really, really take off.
Thanks, Patrick. And given that mining stocks can be sensitive to fluctuations in commodity prices, do you have any strategies to handle the price volatility?
So no, as an exploration company, no. So having come from Red 5, a gold producer in WA, we had hedging in place to help manage the gold price, which with a rise in gold price is a disadvantage. But as an explorer, it's not natural you would have any hedging. But very confident gold will continue to get stronger and stronger. And copper, as I mentioned, that we covered both commodities, is in a very strong position to start to grow. So much rather than gold and copper than lithium or some of the other commodities that are struggling at the moment. And to tier 1 potential projects, copper, gold, it's a great mix.
Understood. Thank you. So what are the next steps for El Palmar, and could you provide more details about milestones over the next 6 to 12 months?
Yeah. So as I said, we are pausing activity to see where these joint venture discussions go, running a number of different sort of strategic streams, but potentially the ongoing go forward exploration program may be funded by someone else in partnership with us. But if we don't get a satisfactory agreement, then we will quite happily continue. And again, it's not very common for a junior miner to have a tier 1 deposit with a 15 to 45 million ounce per annum, 15 to 45 million ounce exploration target. That's an amazing asset to have. As I said, the share price is already performing strongly since we've put it out to the market. I think the market's been very surprised, and we'll keep drilling it if we think that's the right strategy going forward.
Great. Thank you, Patrick. Thanks for your presentation. We'd love to get you on again in the new year. It was great talking to you today, and I hope you have a great weekend.
Thanks very much, Abby. Thanks, everyone.